But this time around, values are stored as indexes. They are stored as indexes in the case of an array. For instance, let me start off. This is my VS Code. Values are stored as indexes in the case of an array. And can you see my screen?
Coming up. Oh, I can see it now.
Okay, so values are stored as indexes in the case of an array. And these indexes, what they do basically is they serve as container to store values. Now, every value has its own index allocated to it in the case of an array. An array could be like saying, every value has its unique index. They have their unique containers. Now, if you can't store two values inside the same index. So the values are all indexed in the case that if my array is called array of schools or something. For example, I think we know it. Subject, let me see. Okay. For example, if you see my screen, I have an array here. This is an array. The name of the array is called, I just called it array, or let me call it array of numbers or anything. You can call it anything. This name it wasn't the array. You can call it any name. Now, these values are stored inside containers. These containers are numbered according to indexes. Like saying I have a box. I have a box where I have numbers. Maybe I have, how do I illustrate this? Maybe I have a box. I think that is this. Sorry, let me bring up this. Can you see my Zoom screen? Hello, what can you see on my screen, please?
Your VS
Okay.
Code, sir.
The VS Code.
The VS Code.
Yes, they are.
I guess I can't show I wanted to draw something using the Zoom attacks. Okay. Okay, so as I was, okay, you can see the Zoom. I don't know if I can share this my Zoom screen. That's what I wanted to confirm. Can you see it?
Open it up. I think you're sharing just are you sharing just the app or everything?
No. I'm sharing my entire screen. I think it's from Zoom. Or let me, I know I've tried it before. It didn't also work. So arrays are like, they are like containers that store these numbers. Now, consider each of these numbers as inside a container. Now, these containers are numbered from 0. Array numbering starts from 0 to 10. So if I have three items in an array is represented with this square brackets. These square brackets. Now I have assigned this variable an array, but the array is an empty array. But if I now put values inside this empty array, I now put values inside of them. So I now have values inside this array, and the values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wow.
Sorry, can you still hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so I have an
Okay,
array of cars. An array of cars now. Now, what I was trying to say is that arrays are stored in container. Now, this first item in the array called bens is stored in a container. This one is stored in a container. And this one is stored in a container. Now, each of these containers are indexed. They are indexed in the sense that the container that has this bens, the container that has this bens is called array of cars 0. Now, this bens is stored in the container name for this bens is 0. So when you number arrays, you start from 0, 1, 2, 3. So since I have 4 items in this array, it means that my numbering will start from 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I have 4 items in an array, which means I have to start from 0 to 3. If I have 20 items, it's from 0 to 19. So, but the idea is that arrays are data types that are stored, that are data types that we store in an indexed format, that each element of the variable is indexed and stored, such that when you want to make reference to the item, all you need to do is to call that index number. Not you don't necessarily need to call the item, but if you reference the index number, the array knows that you are trying to get an object that is stored in this address, and the address is the index itself, being starting from 0 till the final number, depending on number of items you have in the array. Like in this case, we have Benz, we have BMW, we have VRS. Now, an array can contain strings. It can contain strings. Like in this case, these are strings. All these are strings. If I open it now, it will throw an error because I didn't define what this thing is. It can store strings, it can store variable, it can store anything. It can even store array. There can even be an array in an array, and it can also store objects. So I can continue like this and come and store 1, 2, and so forth and so on. The most important thing is that each element in the array is separated by a comma, number 1, and they are found within the squared brackets. So each time you see any data type that is being represented like this, just know that you're dealing with an array. Is it clear, please?
Okay, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, having said that, there are now 2 ways we declare arrays. There are 2 ways we declare arrays. I have done one already on line 194. Well, let me go ahead and do another one here on line 195. This is an array of animals. Another way of declaring an array is using the new keyword. If I say array of animals, new arrays, and I don't need to use the square bracket again, I put it inside the bracket and name the numbers. So I can either declare an array this way or declare an array this way. Now, you remember when we did variable declaration, we said
Yes,
that
sir.
you can declare a variable without actually assigning a value to that variable. The same thing to an array. When I started initially, I declared an empty array. So I can come here and declare an empty array. Call it, okay. I can declare an empty array, which is what I did here on line 204. This array is empty. The array is empty. There is nothing in the array. Either I do it like this, or I do it the way we did it before, by removing everything here and declaring it like this, an empty array. Now, after declaring array, this array means that there is nothing contained here. Yes, you've already declared that this variable called ARR2, or this one called array of things, is an array, but there are no elements in the array. It's empty. Why this one is, we declared our assigned variables. We declare an array and also assigned variables or elements to the array that we declared. So these are the 2 ways in which we declare arrays. Now I want you to take note, please, because arrays are very important thing when you come to. I'm so sorry, I don't know what's going on with this network today. No. Okay, so this is how we declare arrays. Now, after declaring arrays, another important thing to note is, how do I now know, how do I get the elements of these arrays? Remember I said that if you want to access the element of these arrays, you access them through the index to which they have been assigned. And I've also said that you cannot have two array elements living in one address. Every index is unique to an array element. Please take note. Every index is unique to an array element. So, and how do you access the index of an array element? You use this method on line 200. If you want to access the index of each array element, you use this method to access the index. For example, I want to access the element living in address 0 in the array of cars. So I go this way. If I console log this, I will get Benz. Let's just do it and see. Once I console log this, I get Benz. Like I want to access the first element in the array of cars. So once I console log array of cars, and give it and impute its address, immediately I get this Benz, because it's the first element, is the one occupying the index 0 in the array of cars. So if we go to my code and so this is my array of cars. As you can see, I have Benz here in line 199. On line 199, sorry, I have Benz here. So same goes for all. So each time you want to access the elements of an array, all you need to do is to remember the index where the array is being stored and call that index. You call the name of the array, where is the name of the variable using in storing the array. Then you use your square bracket to now impute the index number. It now gives you the element occupying that particular address in the array of cars. So that is how you get it. The same thing applies to down here. Maybe I want to call array of animals and I want to get the element living at index 1 in this case, index 1, and this is array of animals. Okay. So if I console log this, I'm supposed to get this element cats living there, which is what I have here. So this is how you access an element in an array. The individual element in an array. This is how to access the element in an array. Okay. Having said that, I also like us to look at what if, okay, like in this case now, I have formed a new array. It's empty. Now I want to start assigning elements. I want to start storing elements inside this array. Right now it is empty. I want to start storing elements inside this array. These are things we do using array methods. So I haven't given you the fundamentals of array. I want to go into looking at the methods we use in array operations. So I don't know if there are any other questions. Any questions so far?
There's no question, sir.
Okay.
No questions. Hello?
Okay, I can hear you. Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I just want to say that I don't really have battery on my phone, so I might leave the class anytime.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Okay, so just try and get the recorded video and see. Yeah, it's the same challenge everywhere. I'm also having power challenge, but hopefully by this week I should be able to resolve it. So as I told David, I changed my workstation, so I'm trying to fix the new place I'm using. Okay, so straight up, I want us to go into looking at some of the methods we use in arrays. A few methods that we use in arrays. We'll look at a few today. I will continue from anywhere we stop today. Array methods. Please, as we continue, if there is anything you don't understand, please call my attention, because these are the basics. And after learning this, we're able to swim the ocean of JavaScript. Now, the first array method I would like to talk about is the length. How do you get the length of an array? So you want to get the length of an array. How do you get the length of an array? The way how we get the length of array, it's called there is a method called array.length. Now, if you specify the name of the array and you call that method. Methods in JavaScript are generally, methods are like inbuilt functions. No, JavaScript as a language has inbuilt functions that came with it, that you don't need to code yourself. They've already been coded in the background. So all you need to do is to call that method. But most times, in most cases, specific methods are attributed to certain data types. Specific methods are attributed to certain data types. So we'll be looking at some of the methods that are attributed to array data type. We also look at the methods attributed to string data types. But for now, I want us to look into arrays because they are the ones we use almost daily, almost all the time. So one of the methods I'll be looking into is how to get the length of an array. For instance, this array, now we want to know how many elements are resident in this array. That is where the length method comes in. So if you want to get this, all we need to do is to call array.length. Once you call array.length, it now gives you the element that are the number of elements that are resident inside of that array. For instance, animals dot length. When I mean array dot length, the name of the array dot length. So if I call this function, if I call this dot length method on this array, it will give me the number of elements living in this array. So let me console, or let me give it a value. Let me say const. Let me say const length. Let me just say length. Then I console log this length to see my output. So dot log. Also dot log. Sorry for the background noise. Okay, so this is my length. Now, if I console log this on line 224, you see, I get 3 because I have 3 elements in this array of animals. So same thing applies if I change this to array of cars. Array of cars. My answer is expected to be 6 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Note, even if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, according to their index as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So don't mistake the indexing and the length of the array. The indexing gives you an address where these arrays live, and it starts from 0. The 0 index means the first array to the first element in the array to the last element in the array. While the length gives you the number of elements actually resident in that array. Now, if I do array of things, because it's an empty array, it's supposed to give me 0. Because it's an empty array, it's supposed to give me 0. Because right now I don't have anything inside of that array. So let me go and say array of things and see what we get. See, I'm getting 0 because I don't have elements inside of that array. So this is your first array method, the length, how to get the length of an array. Okay, having said that, let's proceed. Now, another thing that is also important for us to look at is having created an empty array, maybe initially. Now, okay, sorry, before I move into another one, you might ask, why do I need the length of an array? Why do I need it? Why do I need to know the length of an array? In most cases, you use it when you're doing for instance, if you're doing your for loop. If you go and start implementing for loop and empty array, it will of course it will return nothing because there is nothing in the array. So most times it is used to check if there are elements in the array. If there are elements in the array, let's say this array of cars is gotten from, we'll look into it, we'll understand it as we go. There is something called API. API. Let's say that if somebody has coded the back end of all the cars in the world, and I want to get the number of cars in the world. All I need to do is to call where that data is resident. And if I call it and I save it in a variable. But before it loads on my screen, I want to first of all check if I've been able to retrieve this data before I go ahead to implement any other functionality. That is where array.length comes in. It helps you to check if your array is actually empty or if there are things resident in this array to know if the result you're getting is the expected result. Okay, now having said that, another thing I want us to look into is I've created an empty array, but now I want to populate it with elements. How do I now populate it with elements? There are different ways of doing this. first of all, you can populate an array that is totally empty, while you can add elements to an existing array. You can even replace the element you have in an existing array. Before we go to add, let us do the replacement few. Remember I said that one index, an element can only live in one address. That is how array operates. So on line 199, array of cars at 0 is Benz. Now, if I come down to this point and I say array of cars, and I say array of cars at position 0, and I assign it, I say equal to, instead of Benz, and I say Kia. What I've done now is I have substituted this thing. Now, if I console log array of cars, I'm no longer going to get Benz at this position. If I now console log this variable, if I go ahead and console log this variable, you see the result I'll be getting now at this point will be Kia. Can you see? At this point is Benz. On line 199 is Benz, but on line 226 it's Kia, because I have replaced it. So if I even go ahead and console log the whole array of cars at this point, you see what I will have here is, see my array of cars. I have Kia, I have BMW, Yaris, Honda 1 and 2. So I've succeeded in replacing that item in that array. So this is how maybe you have an array and you want to change the element that lives in a particular position, because we know that two elements cannot occupy one position. So immediately you introduce another element at that position, it displaces the former one and it takes that position. So that is how, those are the ways arrays operate. Is it clear, please, up to this point?
Yes, it's clear.
All right. Another scenario is when I want to either add to an array. Either I'm adding to a new array or I'm removing from a new array. We use the push method. The push method in array. Push, as the name implies, it simply means I am pushing, I'm forcing something into something. So I'm pushing an element into an array. So all you need to do is to call the push method, and you now specify the item you want to push. How do you call it? Let's say in the array of cars, or let me use array of animals. The array of animals, and I say dot push. Dot push. There are 4 methods we'll look into. Sorry, there are 4 of them that we're going to look into, but we'll tell you the difference and what they do. Dot push. And in this case, I want to push. I have, what do I have? How many? I have goats, I have cats, and let me say I want to push a dog. And I go ahead and push a dog. So if I console log this my array of animals, I'm expected to have a dog inside of that as part of it. Because why? I just added a dog. Okay. Says missing after.
You don't close the brackets.
Oh,
You don't
sorry.
close the bracket. Last bracket, the last line.
Okay, thank you for that. So array of animals, I now have this, which gives me goats, which gives me dog as the last element in an array. Now, this you can achieve this using there are 2 array methods that do almost the same thing when it comes to putting elements in an array. One of them is push. We have push and we have on shift. So if I do array of animals, as I explained, I will just go ahead and do the example so you see. If I do array of animals and I do on shift, there's a method called on shift. We've done push. Now we are looking at on shift. If I go ahead and see on shift and I say bird. Okay, so I have, and I'm console logging array of animals. I did push. So I have I have this, I have this. I specify, okay, I have bird already. Sorry, I was confused. Okay, I have bird already. Let me do pig. Okay, so I used push before. Now I'm doing on shift. Okay, all right. Now see the thing. The both of them add elements to the array, but one of them adds elements to the beginning of an array. The other add elements to the ending of an array. The push method adds an element to the end of an array, while the onShift method adds an element to the beginning of an array. So note this difference between the both of them. The both of them add elements to the array. They are using adding elements to an array. So if I want to adding elements to an array, there are two basic methods we use, the push and the onShift method. You might be wondering, okay, what if I want to add elements at the middle of an array? I'm sorry. For now, JavaScript does not have any method that does that for you. You have to manually do that yourself using your for loop, which we'll use it as an exercise, for loop and adding an element somewhere. But for now, JavaScript does not have a function that helps you to add an element at the middle of an array. All right. So push adds to the end, onShift adds to the beginning of an array. Now, removing items from an array is another important thing I want us to look into. We've done how to add. Now we also have to do how to remove elements from an array. The same way we have two methods that do this thing for adding, we also have two methods that do the same thing for removing. The first one is called pop, array.pop. It's called pop. Array.pop. So array.pop, just like push, it removes the last element in an array. Array.pop removes the last element in an array. It will remove this last element in an array. So as you can see, I no longer have pop there. So array.pop, what it does is to remove the last element in an array from your array elements. Now that is why when you specify array.pop, you do not need to put the elements you're removing because it already knows that it's targeting the last elements. So you can declare it like this. Just array the name of the array.pop with a bracket. Note in JavaScript, each time you say a bracket, like it means that this thing is a method. This pop is called a method. It's an array method. Each time you see a method is symbolized with a dot, the name of the method, and a bracket. Sometimes the bracket carries an element inside, and sometimes the bracket is empty, depending on how the method is being specified. So array.pop pushes elements out from the end of an array. We also have another thing that does the same thing, but this time around, it removes it from the beginning of an array. As we had shifts, we also have, as we have onShift, we also have shifts. So if you do .shift, what .shift will do for you is to remove it from the beginning of an array. So if I console log this array after shifting it, I'll be getting an array that doesn't have pig. See, this first one has pig because that was before I implemented it. This next one does not have pig because I have removed it from the array itself. So I have pop and I have shift. And I have shifts. So these are the two methods that JavaScript gives us to remove elements from an array. So basically don't have to check the length of an array, how to replace elements in an array, and we've also done how to remove and add elements to an array. Whether it's a new array that is empty or an existing array and you want to add more elements to it, these are the methods you use or remove elements in JavaScript. Please, any questions before this section runs out?
Yes. Also, I'm looking at your battery, Sha.
Yeah. So you
I
have to
don't know
bear
if
with
we
me.
were going.
After this session, we might stop
It's okay.
here for now.
Maybe we should,
Sorry,
yeah, we again because that's all I do. To hear me.
I didn't get you. I didn't get what you said.
Okay, I said I don't know if it's possible for whenever you have chance and you're free. We don't really come to class for you to teach us. If you are free and you're willing, you may do a pre-recorded video for us and just send. We are really gonna appreciate that
No problem.
if it's possible.
Think about that. We'll
Anytime it's live,
work towards that. From next weekend, I'll sort out this power issue with array and see. So we've done some things on array. I would just like us to continue from where we stopped the last time. The next one we'll be looking at is okay, let's look at how to join two arrays together using the concat method. I don't know if you've done it. We are looking at array methods. We said array itself has built-in let me not use the word method again. These methods are like a piece of code, packaged piece of code that have already been programmed into JavaScript, such that when you call those, they were programmed, packaged, and given a name, such that when you call that method, internally JavaScript runs a particular function for you and spills out the answer for you. So you don't have to now start coding and using configuring coding to get that solution. So that is what that's what method does. So just as we saw array.pop, we saw the pop method. If you want to add an element to the last, if you want to remove an element from an array. So imagine there was no pop, you have to now logically do it yourself. Maybe use a for loop to go through all the arrays and position where you need to position it and something like that. But so JavaScript they come with these methods that can allow you perform some operations on that allows you to perform some operations on its own. So another one I want us to look at is concat method. Concat method, as simple as that, it just used to join two arrays together. It merges two arrays together and forms a new array with those two arrays. For example, by the way, if I forget, I know we've been wanting to do. I remember we've been wanting to say, okay, I'm coding, I want to see what I'm doing on my screen. You can use document.write for now. There is this document.write for now, just in case you want to see something. But as I told you, when we start doing DOM manipulations, those ones you understand them better. It's part of still manipulating the DOM. So I see those cars, see them here, it's in here. So it's right on the screen for you to see. But I still prefer using console.log so that I will see the type of, because this is an array now, but see it's already destructed, removed it from the array, destructed the array. So that was just by the way. Okay, now so the concat method, it's used to join two arrays together, just as the name sounds, concat. I will try and be fast. Concat joining arrays. We use the concat. Just the name of the array you want to concat. Then I think by now we should be used to how to write these methods. So the concat method. Now you take the first array that you want to join with the second one. And let's say we want to join, we have up there, we have one array called array of animals. Array of animal. Okay, now I want to merge it with the array of another array. I can do this, but concat, then and now specify array of cars. So if I go ahead and do this, let's say I save it in a constant or I console log it like this. Let me say I save it in something. If I go ahead and console log this, I go ahead and console log this. And I have if I go ahead and do this, I'll now have a bigger array that has okay, I have an array of 9 array that has 9 elements inside now, and the elements, number of animals and cars. I think we in the array of cars we also have 1 and 2 somewhere. So it just gives you an array that contains all these things together. As simple as that. That is what the concat method does. So in case you have a problem to solve that requires you merging two arrays together and maybe doing something with them, that is when you call array.concat method and gives you the solution. Okay. Then another thing another one, I'll be fast in this session, please. So another one I would like us to also look is the every method. That's an every method. Now, what the every does is the every method loops through every element in an array and returns true or false for methods that satisfy a particular condition in a callback function. Don't worry, I'll explain what that means, even if the grammar looks too big. Now, first of all, there is something called callback function. Callback function. Now, callback functions are, you know, the way we write functions that we pass argument to functions. And I believe you still remember functions. That this is a function. This function, this line 250 is a function. This line 250 is a function. Now, imagine I'm running another function where I have to pass this function as an argument. Where I have to pass this function as an argument. Like I'm running something else and I need to pass this function that I defined here, this check num function. I want to pass it as an argument into another function. So in that case, this function becomes a callback function in the new function I'm passing it to. Let me say I write a new function. I write a new function. Let me just have a function here. Before I start doing this, I just wanted to explain what this callback function does so that as we proceed, it will be easier to understand. Now, this is a function. This is a function. And this is another function. Maybe let me call this function check num2. Now, you know, functions come with arguments. You have to pass in arguments into function for them to run. So if I call this function now, I want this check function to run. And this check function, and I pass in this check number function inside here. Normally, sometimes what we pass, we either passing numbers or passing arrays or passing objects, and as the case may be. But in this case, I'm now passing in another function inside the first function. So at this point now, this function is a callback function because I'm passing it as an argument inside another function. So remember that when you pass a function inside another function, that is when you have, that is what happens around that time is you're calling a function inside a function. So that is just what callback functions means. So in case you hear, you say, okay, a callback function, that is simply what it means. Passing a function as an argument inside another function. Let me give some examples so I will understand it better with real example. For instance, the array method I want us to treat now is the every method. There's a method called every method. The every method. Just like the other methods will be specifying. You specify method, you put your opening and closing brackets, dot sign. Now, what the every method does is the every methods require a callback function to work. Now, that callback function is what carries out a given operation for your test your JavaScript to carry out a particular operation. For example, in this my case, let me say I want to run this function. This is a function I specify on line 126, and I want this function to return x. to return the value. I want this function. I'm looking for greater than. Please, if you don't get it, just call my attention back after I finish explaining, because this is very important. So I'm running a function, call it value. Okay. Say okay. Greater than say 10. Okay, so what this function is doing is that certain values will be passed into this function. Now, if the value passed in the function is greater than 10, it should return true. Certain values will be passed into it, and if the value passed into this function is greater than 10, it will return true. So before I even try to do the every, if I call this function somewhere, let's say I call this check num function, and I pass the value into it. I call this check num function, and I pass say 20. I console log it, I'm supposed to get true in this case. I go ahead and console log this. I'm supposed to get. Go ahead and do this here. So on line 256, because I passed in 20 and 20 is greater than 10, I'm supposed to get through on line 256. This is it here. So what this function is simply doing is checking for any value that is greater than 10. And if it's greater than 10, it will return true. So it means this condition is satisfied. If this condition is true, it will return what this condition satisfies. But if this value is less than 10, it will return false. So that is just a normal function for to return false. Now imagine a scenario where I now need to pass in this function into another function. That was where I was going. Now I now need to pass it into another function. So what I can do with every is that I will now use an array. If I call every on an array, so for each element of the array, it will check if the number, if that particular condition is satisfied, and if it's satisfied, it will return true for that scenario. This time is almost over. You log in immediately. It will return true for that scenario. Let's go ahead. Okay, so I have an array here. So I have an array. All right, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
I can see it.
All right, so I have an array specified here, array of 20, 30, 5, and maybe 7, okay? Now, with every method, I can iterate. I believe by now you understand what is iteration. Iteration just means passing every element of an array into something. So with every method now, I can iterate each element of this nums array. So all I need to do is to say nums array, just as we've been calling the others. But the only difference in this case now is that I now have to pass my callback function inside this array. Now the callback function I'm passing is this function here that checks these numbers. What I'm simply asking you to do is for each element of this array, run it through this function and return pass it through this function and return the right response. Let me use that word, the right response. So if this condition is satisfied, return true. If it's not satisfied, return false. As you see, it's satisfied for this case, for this case, for this case supposed to return false, and this case supposed to return false. So if we go ahead and console log this, go ahead and console log this. So, So that is line 273. Okay, that's 273 by 17. Okay, check now. Okay. Okay, so you see it's now okay, yes. So what it now does is that it will now go through all the elements of this array. That is what every does, all the elements of this array. If all the elements of this array satisfy that condition, it will return a true. But if they don't satisfy the condition, it will return a false. If all the elements in this array satisfy, that is what the every method does. It passes every element of the array it receives into a particular callback function. Now, if the condition specified in that callback function is true for all the elements of the array, it will return a true. But if one is out of place, it will return a false, telling you that that condition does not work for all the elements of this array. That is why in this case, we are getting a false. But if everything here was greater than 10, we'll get a true return back. If everything was greater than 10, immediately we'll get true, as you can see on my screen. Here, we'll get true return back. So that is what the every method does. The every method iterates through every element of an array, passing it to a callback function, and checks if the condition is satisfied for every element. That's the name every, for every element of that. If the condition is satisfied, it returns true. If it's not satisfied, it returns false. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are cases where
Okay, sorry, sir.
Okay.
I have a question.
Right.
So this every method now doesn't work without a function.
Yes, it requires a callback function to work. Exactly. There are methods that require functions to work. There are methods that don't require. The every method is one of those methods that you have to pass a callback function to, so that it works. And so many other methods in JavaScript, we also have to pass a callback. In fact, some of the important methods in JavaScript require you to pass a callback function. Is that clear?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, so having done the every method, I would like us to jump straight into another method. Now we'll be doing 4 methods today. Okay, we'll be doing these 3 methods I'll be doing are methods that I want you to please master and take seriously, because I know these ones will be using them almost daily. The next one I want to look into is the filter method. Now, just like the every method that checks every element in an array and returns true if all of them fulfill a particular condition, the filter method, as the name implies, rather filters the array. It will filter the array and it will return true. It will now return a new set of arrays that satisfy a particular condition. Let's use the same callback function to now apply our filter method and see what we'll get in return. So we'll now go to filter method. Filter. Okay, so if I go ahead and grab this my line 276, I now change it to filter. Let me change this to filter. And let's see the results of filter. What filter does? The filter method returns the elements, the filter method returns the elements that satisfies that condition. Now, because all these 4 satisfy the condition, it returns them. So let me change this to 0. It will now remove the 0 and return the others. So the filter method picks each element of an array, runs it through a callback function, and returns only the elements that satisfy that particular condition. An interesting method, right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that is what filter does. It collects each element, runs it through a callback function, and returns only the elements that satisfy the condition in the callback function. That's for filter. Straight, we'll be looking at another very important method called the map method. The map method. You know, before now we've done the loop method and the rest of it. You know, these things we're doing now, we can also achieve them with using our loops. But these methods come to make life easy. Naturally, if we're using loop, we'll just run the array for each element. If we now use if statements, if this is this, return this. If this is this, return this. Just imagine where it would have been if we're using our normal for loop for inside let I is equal to, then we'll now go ahead and start writing if statements. If this condition is satisfied, return the element. If it's not, we'll now have for we'll now also have to use push. But these methods makes it easier, such that you just run the methods through a particular callback function holding the condition which you want satisfied, and it gives you back your value. All right. So the map method does similar thing to the filter method, but the difference is that the map method will run through each element in an array and perform an operation with each of them and return back the result in an array. Let me go ahead and demonstrate. So in the case of the map method now, before the answer comes, I want to. Now in the case of the map method, if I do this with the map method, what I'll be having here is now the results of that operation, not the elements themselves. You know, the filter method returns back the elements of the array that fulfills a condition. The every method returns true or false if all the elements fulfill a condition. Now the map method will return the results that have been fulfilled by running that callback. The results that have been fulfilled. So if I go ahead and console log this line, I'll now have true, false, true. Remember that these things are the results after running this callback. It will pick each of these elements and check, is 20 greater than 10 true? It will return the results. Is 30 greater than 10 true? It will return, is 0 greater than 10 false? It will return the results. So you see the difference between them. Why the filter method is returning the elements themselves that fulfill that condition, the map method returns the results of the operation. The results of the operation. So working because of the map method, now let me change this thing and say, instead of doing this, and I said, now each of these value, I want to multiply each of these value by 10. I want to multiply each of these value by 10. Line. I want to multiply each of these value by 10. Okay, so if I go ahead and if I multiply each of these value by 10, this is what I'll get. So you see what the map method does. It picks each element in an array, iterates through these elements, and okay, just need to make sure what's that. Iterates through each of the elements of the array and returns back the results of the operation. So it returns back the result in an array, such that you can see that the number changed here. So any questions on those methods?
No question.
No questions so far.
I'm
So could you
happy.
please scroll up? Sorry. When did you give instruction about, okay, return value times 10, okay.
Yes, in the callback function, that is where you specify your conditions. Inside the callback function, that is when you specify your conditions. Okay. Okay, so having done that, another method I also want us to look into is the reduce method. I'm sorry, after this session, we'll close for the day because I've got something.
Hello, sir. So the map function now did what exactly? It just gave us the answers now.
The what? No, it didn't give us the array. It gave us the result of the array. Please note the difference. 20 times 10 is 200.
Okay, the one that gave us true, false.
It gave us true, false before. See when it gave us true, false. Let me show you. This is when it gave us true, false. Why did it give us true, false? I said the map method returns the results back to you. Once you perform an operation, the map method returns the result in a new array.
Okay, I get now. You change the instruction to time.
Yes,
so
exactly.
give the result as a number.
Exactly. Now it gives you, it carries out whichever operation you want it to carry out. The only what we want it to carry out here is just to compare for us. But when we want to carry out an operation, say multiply, divide, do anything, it will not give us back the results we want.
No
Right.
problem, sir. Please go on.
Okay. So we'll be looking at the reduce method, another powerful method. Just as the name implies, the reduce method is actually used to reduce arrays. Now, in most use cases, it is used to find the sum of an array. I remember sometime when you know how this your bank app, the bank app that calculates. I just give you an example. I remember a scenario when we use reduce for something. When you have your number of deposits that have entered your accounts, then your number of withdrawals. Most times you have an array that specifies all your deposits. Most times you have an array that specifies all your withdrawals. Now, what the filter will do is that the reduce method will now sum up everything you have in the array of all your deposits and give you the sum total of it, particular number. So imagine you have to now do it individual. I know you might be asking, why don't I just do normal the first one plus the second one? So imagine you have a million transactions to run. So you know how bank apps run. You have a million transactions. So you can't manually add them one by one using the JavaScript, this plus this plus this. So once you just run the reduce method, it does the whole of the math for you. All you just need to do is to specify the array and it will go ahead and do it for you. So the reduce method array. Let's go ahead and demonstrate what the reduce method is. Now, when it comes to the reduce method, there's a slight difference. There's something that we may need to change because the callback function of the reduce method actually has to accept two values. The callback function of the reduce method has to accept two values. So in this case, these are callback function that was specified here. These are callback function. Now has to collect two values in the case of the reduce method. Now, the two values to collect, I will explain. It's called, the first value is always called accumulator. Accumulator. While the second one is called the current value. The current accumulator and the current value. Current value. So you now return accumulator plus current. Plus current. Plus current value. So if you return accumulator plus current value, your reduce method knows what you want to do. It immediately returns the sum total of this array. Look at it here. We are having 120 already because we've already console locked it here. So what it will do, it will iterate through this array and sum them up together and give you the sum total of all the elements in this array. So even if you have a billion elements in your array, just call on the reduce method to just do the math for you and tell you where you're heading to. Okay, so all this did it change? There's something change. Okay. Number is not changing. Oh, sorry. This is my array. I'm calling it on this one. I'm calling it on this one, sorry, and I'm expecting this result. This was what I was looking for. That's 120 here. Yeah. All right, so this is what we have. So the reduce method reiterates through each value of an array, adding the previous value to the next value. Now, while we have accumulator and current values, accumulator, the callback function for this method accepts two arguments, the accumulator and the current value, where accumulator is equal to the first value of the array, while the current value is attributed to the next value of the array. So it's like saying accumulator is 0, it's already assigned to 0, it's already assigned to 20, the current value is 30. Now it will now add it and get 50. In the next iteration, in the next run, the accumulator is now 50, the next value is 0, it's just like that until it sums up everything. That's for that. But there's another argument that the reduce method also carries, apart from the callback function that it accepts as an argument. It also accepts something called an initial value. An initial value. So if you assign an initial value to the reduce method, your accumulator, the first time you run the iteration, your accumulator becomes this initial value, while your current value becomes the first value of the array. So it's like saying, okay, the first time you run it, this one now is now the sum total. Then it will now add 20, just like that, like that, like that. But if you have no initial value, if there is nothing here, it will take this first value as the initial value, which is now the accumulator. So that is what the reduce method does. It's used basically to reduce an array. In most cases, that is where it is used to get the sum total of a huge array or of an array, just to get single number. In all cases, the reduce method always returns a single number. Always returns a single number. That's one thing I want you to also note. So these methods are very important methods. The reduce method, the filter method, the map method, in conjunction with once in a while, you're going to be using everything. Your pop, your shift, and the ones we've mentioned before. They are very important methods that I want you to please take notes and get used to them, because you see them a lot when dealing with, when working with JavaScript. So any questions on these ones? You know, the one that looks a little bit nice is the reduce method, where you just follow it the way it is. The only difference is that the callback function for reduce method accepts two parameters. It collects an accumulator and a current value. The reason being that it needs a starting point to work. So that this thing becomes its starting point. Yeah, Felix, you can go ahead and ask a question. Hello, Felix.
So does it mean that, I'm sorry, it's David, the line 285 now,
Okay.
it wasn't using the array you defined above, the vars you defined above.
Yes, no, you know, I was calling it on a different array and making changes on a different array. That was the problem. I was calling it
So that
norms
has been
array.
commented out.
Yes, yes. So I was calling it on this array, but rather I was changing this array and it was not changing. So I was wondering why it wasn't changing. So any question on these methods,
So
please?
I'm sorry about the accumulator thing, because what I'm seeing here is that he added everything.
Yes, that is what the reduce method does. It sums up all the elements in an array to give you the sum total.
So what's the accumulator now? The accumulator is 20 in this case.
Yes, in this case, the first time it runs, the accumulator is 20 exactly. So the accumulator is like the initial value. The initial value for every iteration that it will run. So the first time it's running, in this case, the accumulator is 20, the current value is 30. The next time it comes back to run, accumulator is now 50, current value is 0. The next time accumulator is 50, current value is 70. So it keeps adding to the accumulator. Adding, that's why the name is accumulator. It collects.
Okay, but we don't see this multiple runs. We just see the final answer. That's
exactly. So these are what JavaScript does behind the scene. That is why it is called, they are called methods. They've already been programmed into JavaScript, and JavaScript does those things for you and spills out the answer for you.
Hello, sir, Mr. Prince.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so all these methods you've taught us so far, especially the reduce, the map, and the filter, and every, like they only work with numbers.
They don't necessarily work with numbers. Let's see. They don't work with numbers. Just that I'm using numbers. Okay, let's do Okay, let me say, because we have an array of animals here. We have an array of animals. So let me do the filter method. They don't work with numbers, they work with basically any type of comparison you want to address or work with. But let's see an example. Yes, we have an array of animals. So we have animals, we have goats, we have cats, we have birds. So let me filter. Let me say I want you to give me an array that just contains goats or something. Let's do filter and see. So in this case, if I come here and say, okay, now I have to define a function. Define a function, say, okay, let's say we have, okay, 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 can use them for anything depending on the condition that you're running, but your condition must be reasonable. Like in the last example we talked about, I cannot be comparing this animal greater than is good greater than it's not a logical comparison. So, but if I do something like you should return okay, return animal equal to goods. So I'm saying filter through that array and return uh um yeah, let me see. Okay. So in this case now what I have is I'm filtering through this array and I'm returning an animal called goods. It's telling me empty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rightly returning false. Also specify my array of animals here. It was rightly returning false because there is no animal called goods in that array I was calling it on before. But in this case, it's returning goods. Returning goods. So what I basically asked you to do is, please scroll, iterate through all the elements of an array. If there's an animal that the name is equal to goods, return that animal for me. That's the one I want. So you see, it now returns that particular animal called goods for me. So the same thing with mapping, but how do you use it now in the case of mapping? So okay, if there's an animal called, you might now have to use an if statement. If there's an animal called goods, okay, return maybe let's do something with map and see if I want to work with map and see if and say now I can employ an if statement and say if animal goods and I want to say if animal is equal to goods, return how the animal backs or something. So which I want you to return on uh, else. Just return. So you go ahead and In this case, now what we are doing is sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. So what we did here now was we are trying to get the sound that each animal make. Now we included an if statement. We are saying, okay, if for goats, all the animals that are goats return meh for them. For the rest of the animal, return lala. So what it now did, it now run each of those elements into this callback function and check here. Once it sees using the map method, once it encounters an animal that the name is good, to return meh, the rest to return lala. So basically what the map does is it will run through the element of an array and pass it to a callback function. Now, what will do the job is the callback function. But what the map will now do is to now collect the result of what was done in the callback function and spill out for you. The whole arithmetic, the whole calculation, manipulation, whatever you want to call it, goes on in the callback function. So the map method will collect those things and now give you the results. So you can put any condition inside your callback function. It's left for you depending on what you're looking for. But what these things do for us is they help you to iterate through an array such that you don't have to start writing for loops. You don't call this function and pass in. Somebody should mute, I think. Yes. Hello, okay. So such that you don't need to now start writing for loops yourself. It just collects the array, iterates through the elements of the array and gives you the result you desire. So does that answer your question, Suka?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sir, please, I have a question.
All right.
From that, the filter method, when you use the filter to filter the animal, is it possible to, if you have arrays of animals, like 10 animals inside an array, then you want to filter to get animals that have a particular letters, is it possible to use filter to get it?
Yes, it's possible. You want to filter through to get animals that begin with a particular letter.
Yes.
Yes, it's possible. It's possible to use filter to do that. You just have to write your condition in your callback, fight back. Let me see. Oops. Our time is less than 10 minutes. Let me see. Where is that array of animals? Okay. So basically what we can do is you compare animals that begin with a particular letter. You know there is a JavaScript function to check the beginning of. Let me explain and leave that to you to go and also see what we can do about it. There is this character, there is this char, char to check the characters of word. So if you look through the array and check and use that char, you can find words that begin with a particular letter. You can find words that begin with a particular letter. I think the method is called char at something like this. Trying to call char at. So what you need to do inside your callback function, if this is your callback function, you just said if char at equal to, you specify the number you want to specify, maybe G, return something else. or if it does not satisfy the condition, return something else. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
But whatever I want to do with filter, you can actually do. What you need to do is to know this. The task here now is knowing how to write your logic inside your callback function. That is where the work lies. You have to now know how to write your logic depending on what you want to achieve. And in this case, we wanted to achieve animals that make the sound meh. We know that goats make the sound meh. So okay, if the animal is equal to goats, let the sound be meh. Other animals can be lala. You can do if the else if the animal is a bird, just like that. You continue like that. But the main task here is to know the logic you put inside your callback function, and you just apply any of the methods. It gives you either the results or gives you the element itself. Like the filter returns the elements that satisfies that condition, while the map returns the results of the operation. So before we are less than 10 minutes. Before we go, I would like us to also look at the sort method. There's a method called sort. Now, what sort does for us is sort helps us, as the name implies, to sort out our arrays in either a default method is in ascending order. Let's say I have this array of numbers here. If I apply the sort method to them, they'll be arranged in ascending order. Will be arranged in ascending order. This, and I specify the sort array of numbers, and I say sort. But sort is one of those. The sort is one of those methods that don't require any callback. Once you just put array.sort, specify the name of the array you want to sort, and .sort, it will just sort it out for you in 298 0 120. Okay. I get in 120. Okay, this is sort. We is not certain that we do it 20 days, 70 minutes. Okay, so when I put on, sorry, let me see why it's not certain.
So there's nothing inside the bracket of the sort.
Yes, code like that, it does.
Okay.
Okay, it's sorting this one. Well, why is it not sorting? By this, the default behavior is supposed to sort the arrays in ascending order. Okay. Check why, but I think after 10 and 9, that's when Okay, this is bench. Okay. I will check why it's not responding the way it's supposed to after 9. Because even if you use it for not only for numbers, but also for strings. You can see when I did array of animals, it sorted them out because B comes before C and C comes before G. So that is what array.sort does. Just helps you to sort your arrays in order, the way that's supposed to appear. If it's numbers in ascending order, and if for strings, it sorts them out using the alphabet positions. So these are the methods. I'll find out why the array.sort is does that thing it does after 9. I don't know why. I'll check that. All right. So basically, this is where I want us to stop today. Please, I will advise look at these things again and practice them. I want to apologize for these short classes. From next week, I will have more time on my hands, hopefully. So we're able to do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And also, Felix.
Sir?